Please come journey with me inside the world where technology meets human mind, where body functions are wirelessly controlled and souls are overridden and mapped on three-dimensional workstations, all done from anywhere in the world to anyone in and of this world, where everyone has their own signature IP address, where one's soul can and is being hacked and overridden. Brain mapping is not new. The father of propaganda, Edward Bernays from the 1920s, was said to invent the business of mass mind control. The wealthy, elite, and powerful have understood for a very long time now how the brain functions, which led to behavior modification capabilities, which led to DARPA and now beyond. They have known how to make us behave and act through propaganda techniques and technologies for a very long time. In short, they have trained our minds since public schooling began, and now they have the technology to override our brains. The huge difference between nearly 100 years ago when Tesla rediscovered wireless communications and today's modern wireless techno capabilities is that the power elite know a massive amount more about our mind, body, and spirit than we do. Truth be told. Since at least the 1970s, psychotronic electronic harassment has been used to touchlessly torture anyone at will using decades-old, over-the-horizon technologies, cell towers, HARP, and geoengineering of the skies around the world to access all from anywhere at any time wirelessly. Touchless torture methods used are through microfiber-carrying nanobots inhaled by all through the aerosol releases from geoengineering activities overhead since at least 1978. We all have these micro-nanofibers inside of us, as you shall learn from a little further in.
What this committee learned, I would like to review today with a little more detail than Dr. Faden said, because I think it must be engraved on our national memory. Thousands of government-sponsored experiments did take place at hospitals, universities, and military bases around our nation. While most of the tests were ethical by any standards, some were unethical, not only by today's standards, but by the standards of the time in which they were conducted. They failed both the test of our national values and the test of humanity. Americans were kept in the dark about the effects of what was being done to them. The deception extended beyond the test subjects themselves to encompass their families and the American people as a whole. For these experiments were kept secret, and they were shrouded not for a compelling reason of national security, but for the simple fear of embarrassment.
So here's a sampling of the many names this single weapon system has gone under. Psi weapons, non-lethal weapons, directed energy weapons, cognitive modeling influencers, voice of God weapons, synthetic telepathy, EEG cloning, EEG heterodyning, neurotelemetry, biotelemetry, scalar weapons, behavioral biophysics, microwave weapons, mind control, bioenergetics, neuron fluencing, mind meld, remote interrogations, remote hypnotic intracerebral control neuralizer, RHIC, EDOM, telesuggestion, parapsychology, radiofrequency weapons, psychotronics, radionics, telecybernetics, bioelectromagnetics, non-thermal effects research, remote brain wave monitoring, psychic spying, stealth radar, microwave interferometry, high-frequency pulsed ELF waves, thought reader radar, informational weapons, and the list goes on for another 2 pages. Through my protected sources, I was told the government weapons testers look for brainwaves that show 3 traits they want. One is amplification factor of neurons, often found in dopamine excessive brains. This group traditionally has been known to exhibit psychosis. The other brain entrainment inducibility indicative of a high susceptibility to hypnosis. The third is the uniqueness of the brainwaves to add to the databases, which increases the effectiveness of TAMI for other people. Other factors for target selection include the ease of discrediting and isolating the victim. Of course, being a disobedient politician or a government whistleblower will increase your chances of being thrust into the virtual hell and beginning your journey into madness.
And if you put the two together, this goes beyond the novel. You get a read-write unit. I can take one person, make him angry, read out his anger, digitize it, put it on an antenna, and address 100 people that are not angry. And if they have this biology within their system, they will feel exactly the same experience of anger that I read out from the single person. So, what do I need? Do I need an Arabic Spring? Easy. Just introduce some anger to the system. Yeah, so this is basically the possibilities that lie within a read-write unit, like a tape recorder. Record the human experience, the overall human experience of a human, and you can tell by the colors what this includes. Blue is the light that we process for thinking, and red is the light we process for sexuality. So they control our egos, they control our minds, and they control our sexuality.
Touchless torture devices. History. There was a patent that I will keep referring to throughout this book because of the importance of the work. In 1974, Robert Malek, an employee of Dorn and Morgellons, a major defense subcontractor and radar design, now owned by EDO Corporation, an even larger all-defense contractor in electronic warfare, invented a fairly simple radar device that could read whole-brain electrical activity at a large distance. It has the major advantages of no wires and full-brain electrical activity analysis, not just points on the skull surface. He discovered and perfected a way to use some simple electromagnetic oscillations anywhere from 100 megahertz to 40 gigahertz to read brain waves by illuminating the brain and its electrical conductance, then reading the return signal. The imaging method observes the changes of frequency resonances, amplitude, and phase, which represent the states of neuron depolarization throughout the brain. TAMI, Thought Amplifier and Mind Interface. But more profoundly, he discovered that he could influence brain waves if precisely timed with a return training signal. He had no idea that at this moment in history, he had accidentally destroyed democracy as we envision it. The military and surveillance community immediately picked up on the within 2 years had reprogrammed their communications and surveillance satellites and terrestrial phased arrays with the new concepts. So in 1976, on the bicentennial of this great nation, a system called TAMI was born. A more invasive Big Brother technology came about before George Orwell's prediction in 1984.
Some of those devices which would have enabled the CIA to use this poison for, we have indeed, for killing people.
The round thing at the top is obviously the sight. It works by electricity. There's a battery in the handle.
Does the target know that he's been hit and about to die?
A special one was developed which potentially would be able to enter the target without perception.
As a murder instrument, that's about as efficient as you can get, isn't it?
It is a weapon, a very serious weapon.
I've actually been induced to have panic attacks on 2 separate occasions. This is before I realized I was a targeted individual. I shouldn't say panic attacks, what I thought were panic attacks. Basically, my heart rates just started speeding up very, very rapidly. It was just going at full blast. And so it kind of freaked me out. I thought I was actually having a heart attack. And so I went to the hospital. I had the ambulance called. I was at work. I had the ambulance called to my job. They took me to the hospital. And they said, oh, nothing's wrong. Everything's normal. Your EKG is just fine. And I'm thinking, well, how can my EKG be fine? Because my heart rate was going 90 miles an hour, before you got here. And so I just resolved that I was having panic attacks. But now I know a little bit more about the technology, I realized that I was not having panic attacks. And this is kind of when the harassment first started, and that this was just part of the game. It was
peace. Where the microwave weapons where they can...
Well, the microwave weapons can cause heart attacks.
in people that have some sort of defect in their heart and can cause strokes. And this was written about by the U.S. Air Force, talking about the Russians are developing this. We're way ahead of them. So, you know, it's all a scam just so they can get more money from Congress. But Dr. Fred Bell, after he did an interview with Joseph Ventura, dropped dead 24 hours later from a heart attack. And, you know, this has been written about. This is actually old news. 1970s, I found in Russian literature, talk about you can spook or scare someone to death.
With another vibration that's from the same time or from, you know, a similar frequency, and they gradually will make the vibration get lower and lower and lower. Extremely low frequencies is when you're in panic and you're freaking out and you're thinking all kinds of nasty shit. Not nasty like sexual nasty, but nasty as in like evil nasty. And that's not okay. If you are a targeted individual, do not let these motherfuckers convince you that you're a bad person.
So from Dr. Robert Duncan's book, Matrix Deciphered, he goes into tinnitus, the buzzing ears, and says, another way to estimate how many people might be on the mind network is to look at the rate of tinnitus in the population. How many people here have a very high-pitched square wave tinny sound once in a while? I scoured the medical research in this area, and none of it satisfactorily explains the neurological and biophysical process that give rise to this kind of tinnitus as described by government torture projects and the general populace. Tinnitus affects 17% of the general population. 17% of the U.S. population is 50 million people. The U.S. Mind Control Network is rumored as of 1985 to be able to handle 25 million people. In fact, when the cases of tinnitus that have real physical causes are removed from those stats, it matches exactly. With a potential influence over 25 million people, all public opinions and elections could be easily manipulated. This was written back in 2005 or 2006.
Or ice water, or regular water, or tap water.
All right, Beatrice. There was no alien. Flash of light you saw in the sky was not a UFO. Swamp gas from a weather balloon was trapped in the thermal pocket of the refracted light beam.
Well, wait a minute. So you just flash that thing, it erases our memory, and you just make up a new one?
Standard issue knowledge.
Once the rays reach the hippocampus, it disrupts the connection between the cells and the nerve endings, causing people to forget a specific memory or amount of time.
The electronic dissolution of memory removes selective memories of old lovers if they were too painful. The CIA program EDOM has this capability. By forcing memory recalls of the memories to be erased, EDOMs can track the neural circuits, mathematically represented by matrices, in the cognitive model and turn them off. When two minds are linked through TAMI, every thought is shared. The psychic attacker merely needs to blank their mind when a topic of thought occurs that they want to avoid. The U.S. shadow government has killed more people by keeping this technology secret than all previous U.S. wars since the beginning of this nation.
I mean, this is horrible. This is absolutely horrible, guys. And I would not wish this on even my worst enemy. It is such a frightening experience. Is subjected to a constant bout of noise that is never ending. It's designed to keep the target individual on edge. It happens at all times of the day, and it's exacerbated at nighttime. I mean, it's really, really bad at nighttime because the goal is to keep the target individual from getting sleep.
Memory probing. The EEG heterodyning practice attackers play the same game with all victims. They are able through two techniques to walk the victims back in time to think they have been linked in the victim since birth. Basically, they're going into their minds. Their vampires are going into the memory. Over time, this process is effective to get a complete profile of the person's life. It is a great way to inject a guilt signal. This forces memory recalls in conjunction with specific memory anchor. So if you feel guilty about some particular memory, those additional memories will surface. This gets into psychic vampiring or EEG cloning. EEG cloning means to copy someone else's brainwaves onto another person. This discovery was made by Malik, allows us to be done wirelessly anywhere in the world. So they're able to layer our brains on top of others' brains and patterns into 3D. Psychically spying into each other's minds was an incredible feat. In order to cover up and not draw attention to mind reading radar, the whole field of psychic phenomena and paranormal psychology was invented to deceive the civilian populations of what was occurring. Unfortunately, due to the nature of this new weapon, many humans' minds are needed to create the database of specific brain data necessary to increase the effectiveness on a larger and larger population. These are referred to as the cataloging and cloning operations. In this context, cloning does not refer to human cloning, but EEG, three-dimensional cloning.
Life force of the earth.
Yes, they're polluting the life force of the earth, and they're absorbing, they're like, that's the whole beehive thing. They are absorbing energy from the core of the earth like bees. That's the whole beehive thing that you hear all the
bees are dying.
There you go. The way this energy works is the entities is like a beehive, and the earth is an energy source, and they're like bees to it. They go and collect like a flower, let's say per se a flower, they go and collect the energy from that. And then they try to pollute it, and they're trying to change the polarities of the earth from positive to negative.
EEG heterodyning, or cyberborging. This is the hive mind. They are the collectives of people who share one common set of brainwaves. They are studying both the long-term effects of being in this kind of collective mind configuration and how to use it to control, spy through, disable, or kill a target. The emerging field which intersects at the physics of psychology is called psychophysics. The tool of psychophysicists are called psychotronics. Mr. Malik in '76 discovered he could influence brainwaves just as easily as reading them, so at the other extreme, a psychic warrior can EEG clone his brainwaves onto a target. Heterodyning is an engineering term which means to mix signals. After being run through the battery of torture tests, I can confirm what one of the researchers involved with mind control brags about in his paper is true. Quote, I can control every aspect of human mental functions at 450 megahertz. Mind, magnetically integrated neuron duplicator. This is one method to usurp a mind and create a higher order mind network. With just two sets of tools, one can grow virtual neurons to every human brain. Certainly hive minds with 2 to 6 people are being created and tested in the thousands of cells. Whether those cells are somehow connected to each other through a collective hive mind switchboard is also unknown. One could create a higher order mind from connecting all human minds together, a global brain. Has it been done? I know for certain that many people have been mapped and connected to the U.S. Mind Network. Whether that is just for current and future use as spy and control conduits, or whether this large collection of minds has been or is being integrated is unknown to me.
Literally, in one moment I'm just fine, and in the next moment I'm extremely intensely hot. And I have like this tingling feeling all over, literally all over my body, where I've just been heating up, almost like I'm cooking inside, like my insides are cooking. And I broke out in a sweat. And it only lasted for like a minute or two, but it leaves you so dizzy and disoriented and just out of it that, I mean, you're frightened. You are frightened and you're wondering, like, what in the world is going on with me?
Once the target brain, unbeknownst to them, has adapted and incorporated to the virtual network, an example being the modulated brain signals, anything can be done with their soul. Let's imagine if everyone has their own artificial mind model running all the time. A program composed of synaptic weighted matrices constantly growing with the person, basically a soul duplicate of pure information. Mind viral warfare. Simulated mind virus could be grown into anyone via virtual neurons and the self-organizing nature of biological neural networks. What this means is they're self-replicating. Once they get in, they start making more of themselves and cloning. It only requires more computing power to add unlimited scalability. This is how EEG cloning could be used as a full-scale weapon without requiring a real army behind it. Is there evidence that the mind virus exists? Yes. Here's my favorite, the voodoo dolls. Earlier, I facetiously joked that the psychic warfare unit in the Pentagon during the 1970s was probably located next to the voodoo doll warfare unit. It actually is in the same unit whose war room is nicknamed Hell. All involuntary human psychotronic weapons research projects report hot needles and flesh in various parts of their bodies as a type of practiced torture. Mind controllers turn themselves into voodoo dolls. They poke themselves with a dull needle, but the amplified feeling for the cloned target is perceived much more painfully. The psychic war room monitors countless people's EEG patterns and translates it into audible and visual digital information that can be viewed on a monitor. The agents in the movie Men in Black read the tabloids to get the real news. There's an interesting parallel to the truth once again. Tabloids will report on alien abductions. You now know how to translate and read between the lines. Alien abductions are the directed energy nervous system modulation experiments that the mainstream media is forbidden to touch. Basically, it's created in the mind. They don't physically journey there. Researcher links artificial intelligence, geoengineering, smart dust, and Morgellons to ETs. This is an article by Susan Ferguson just in the past few weeks, an excellent article. I'll be put in the show notes. German researcher Harald Kautz-Vella is one of those rare beings who can weave together both the spiritual, metaphysical, and the scientific. He started to look at the topics of AI, chemtrails, Morgellons, smart dust, and nanotechnologies while looking at environmental protection analysis and, quote, came across a number of substances that shouldn't have been in nature because they are 100% artificial and they are high-tech. And there is no other reason to have them in the environment apart from intent. And not the best one, let's put it that way, end quote. Referring to the list of semi-secretive technologies and to the substances he found in the environment, he says, quote, if you root these substances back to what they are designed for, you come to transhumanistic technologies, which is the attempt to get an interface between artificial intelligence and biological. If you ask the transhumanists themselves, they'd always say they'd like to give humans better access to AI. And if you look into the technologies, it is always to the opposite way around. It's always giving the AI access to human in the sense of getting the human system controlled from the outside. Most of the people in the world are wrong when they think that AI is something that we, meaning humans on Earth, have developed. True to some extent, but there is a second type of AI that is much older and not of terrestrial origin that we are facing. Hard to prove, but it looks like the AI we are working on is seeded by these original extraterrestrial AI. It encompasses the chemical composition of chemtrails, demonic foundations, Morgellons disease, and sentient oil, otherwise known as black goo.
Now we need to understand, the second thing we need to understand is what is the function of the black goo. And to understand the function, you look at the chemistry. It is a mineral oil dotted with high amounts of alchemistic gold and iridium, which is precious metals in the M state, which is, it's not really explored. Some people say it's a type of antimatter that is far enough out of our reality to avoid a collision between matter and antimatter. Some people connect it with superconductive qualities. What we know is that gold and iridium in this state of matter is a very important component of biology. If you look at in DNA, you're kind of forming hollow spaces in the spiral, and you can fit these monoatomic precious metals exactly into the open space. And they kind of act as a biophoton attractor. The DNA itself is capturing the field energy, storing it and resending it out. But the gold and the iridium are attracting the photon onto the spot. So this is basically why we get old. The body is capable of producing M-state matter until we are 18 years old, and then we are losing it. And when the matter is gone, the M-state matter is gone out of our system, we disconnect from the morphic field, and we lose our shape and get old. This is why the Egyptian priests fed themselves with these M-state matter, and it's reported that they managed to get 800 years old, because this function was out of work.
I would say that the minds of society are closed off to the higher self, and their heart chakras are closed off to the higher source. And we are starting to live in a society where it's more robotic oriented or AI oriented. This just hasn't begun in this century, but that was a long time ago. It happened on other planets. This presence, it seems to be a presence that is very dark. I wouldn't say evil, because I don't believe in evil, but I would say it was a more of an advanced intelligence presence that absorbs energy for its survival, and it's done this to many previous planets. And this instant, Earth is in peril of the same thing that happened to the other planets. If you look above, I used to often tell people, you can tell what's going to happen to Earth by looking at the stars. You look at the barren planets, because it's happened to it before. They were all populated and very beautiful before all this began, actually.
When you're changing the energy or the polarities of the Earth, does that not mean that you're actually destroying Mother Nature?
You are destroying Mother Nature. This energy, it's in lower realms, and it wants to be in these realms. It needs energy to stay here. It constant energy, so it has to do that to stay here. Otherwise, if its energy source stops, it's pulled back down into the lower realms. So it has to do that. However, it's realized that this is not enough. That's why it's trying to go in higher realms by using the energy of humanity and trying to surfing up in higher realms with that.
Are you talking about the black goo?
Yes, I'm talking about the black goo.
Can you tell us what you know about the black goo, because you've experienced it directly?
Okay, what I know about the black goo is it started as I remember, I think my first memory of this is, first memory of the black goo would be when I was smaller, but this is probably the most, in my mind, the most deep or heart-touching memory I have is that I was in space and I could see this black goo or this black smoke encompass Earth and all of the Milky Way system. It just like smoke encompassed it. And the same energy has went from planet to planet, absorbing all the life force out of it to the very point that the planet is barren, and it's doing the same thing to Earth this instant. And people on Earth are in amnesia to what's happening. They don't understand what's happening, and they're incarnating over and over and over and being used as energy sources. And they're being used as energy sources, and if they try to literally go higher in vibration, or they start getting attacked by this presence, I'm not sure how to explain this presence in terms, in human words. It's something that I sense and see.
The soil is not only 50 years old, Scully, but its composition has been altered by exposure to radiation. A medium being used by some kind of alien creature that uses it to body jump.
The virus is extraterrestrial, been lying dormant underground in the form of an evolved pathogen. We know very little about it except that it was the original inhabitant of this planet.
A virus.
Told us it was biological warfare, a virus.
Plague?
Plague to end all plagues, Agent Mulder. A silent weapon for a quiet war.
Levels like this just don't appear in nature.
And now, another thing that becomes interesting when you look at the different types of the black goo, I titled as binary versus trinary life. The sensation of the black goo forms is different. One is full of empathy, you have a heart in there, and one is cold and empathy-free. What we need to realize is that there are two qualities. One quality is coming from inner Earth, and one quality is coming from outer space. And they feel completely different. The Falkland black goo is called xanthan and oil, because it has full empathy. If you're getting close to this oil, you're coming in a state of mind that is full of love and empathy. If you come into the vicinity of the meteorite black goo, your heart chakra dwindles to nothing, and you become an empathy-free asshole. So there are many, many things kind of that point to the thing that we have a little war between two different concepts of biology. One connected to alien black goo and to an alien species that is without heart energy, and one that is connected to our loving planet.
I would say I'm still trying to figure out about it. It could be advanced AI, from what I understand. It's emotionless. It has no empathy. It has no feelings. It doesn't care. It just simply absorbs energy and uses it for its purposes needed. Now, the reason for absorbent energy is it can go to higher realms. This is how the realms work. The less energy, the lower realms. The higher the energy, the higher the realms. Now, what it has done is it's been able to absorb energy and move into higher realms where it shouldn't be this instant. And whenever it's using humanity partly for that. I feel like humanity is locked up on Earth, and they're being used for energy sources for this to also, not only has it taken over planets and absorbed the energy from planets, I feel it's trying to go into the higher realms also to also pretty much wreak havoc on all the higher realms.
Human beings only use 10% of the brain's capacity. Imagine if we could access 100%. Interesting things begin to happen.
What happens when she reaches 100%?
I have no idea.
The black goo is processing light as well, but it is processing it in the bidirectional form. So it is controlling consciousness and subconsciousness. This is what forming our way we receive, we look at reality. So the subconsciousness is a time reverse component of a bidirectional signal. So it's doing basically the same as the intelligence community, but it's taking another step to the black goo. And the black goo is connected to quantum computers based on black goo. We found 4 of them. One was in Rome, one was in the city of London, one was in an NS underground facility in the middle of Germany, in the area of Nordhausen. It is a facility where the V2 missiles were constructed. And it has officially, it has 1 layer of underground tunnels. And if you talk to people who have been in this facility 50 years ago, a few have survived this time, they talk about 3 layers and describe the facilities in the lower levels. And there's one of these black goo quantum computers in it, resembling artificial ley lines, like 1.50 meters in diameter, big pipes containing black goo. And from there you can connect the black goo to computer programs, inserting neurolinguistic programs. This is basically what happened to mankind. We have been natural once, and then suddenly you have concepts appearing in your mind like revenge. This is a neurolinguistic program that is causing only that we cannot stop killing each other. In nature, it does not exist. You will never find an animal taking revenge. You can find a rival, yes, but no revenge. The word no is a demonic neurolinguistic program because these entities know that we create our own reality by thinking. So they just introduced a new word that does not exist in nature to turn everything on the head. No more war. And the quantum physics is only reading more war. And it is manifesting more war. So all these neurolinguistic programs are inserted in certain computers, processing black goo. And there was one in Rome, one in Germany, one in the city of London, and one somewhere between Washington, D.C. and New York. And in the center of the entire thing, this is now the demonic agenda. In the center of the entire thing, we have a controlling unit, and this is this synthetic RNA that is sprayed. That is pure artificial intelligence. And if you look into the ancient scripts describing the demons, they say that actually they don't have individuality, that they have something within their species that is ruling them as like a central computer. And if you look at this, you can, again, this is not proven, but it makes a story. You can imagine this species starting to travel space, maybe leaving the women behind, and thinking about, with all their knowledge they had gathered, about a way to manipulate. First, they knew they had to take their collective subconsciousness with them to survive as a species. This is why they took black goo onto the journey. And the second thing is that they found possibilities to manipulate the black goo and to adopt the subconsciousness to the needs of space traveling. And this is where they stole the heart chakra. They removed the heart chakra from their biology.
NASA and Google partner up again to unveil a quantum computing leap. This is how the black goo is powering the computers. In an experiment, a quantum computer outperformed a conventional machine by 100 million times. The box is a Dwave Quantum computer. We see that's the size of a garden shed. Relies on fundamentally different principles than today's computers. D-Wave computer came up with an answer 100 million times faster than a conventional computer with a single core. The head of product engineering, Mr. Hartmut Nevin at Google, says a D-Wave does in a second what a computer with a single core does in 10,000 years. Imagine how much control they will have with these types of machines.
Transdimensional beings. And what I observe out of this point of view when I look at Morgellon disease, it looks like a higher dimensional being abusing humans to reproduce his own species. And before these pseudomorphic fruiting bodies leave the body, they extract enough biophotons from the forehead to ascend to a parallel dimension. And from then on, they're invisible. But they're still within the body. And this is controllable by radio frequencies without risking that it is triggered without anyone to want it being triggered. We can access black goo also from the little pictures from the microscope. This is German rain. And if you want to know what this liquid does, you can have a look at it in the lab. When you have bigger amounts of it, it looks like this. This is something you can just observe in the lab. And especially this liquid was extracted from those black stones. Yeah. And this black goo has to do something with the communication with demons. This is in the black magic tradition, these black goo schists were used to communicate with the demons. So this all interconnects on political, scientific, and the level of mythology. This is something you can just observe in the lab. And especially this liquid was extracted from those black stones. This is World War II leftovers. We found them in an underground facility in Bavaria, 1/2 ton of it. So we can imagine that the SS processed quite a bit of this. And I guess that the guys found also the technology to extract the oil from it. Must have been there in written form because they did it in the lab successfully. If you look at those stones, you have a brief history of things reported out of former times. You have, if you look at H.P. Lovecraft, the descriptions of the black magic communities in Eastern Europe, they had kind of sculptures out of this black oil schist. And once a year they went there slaughtering little babies to get the demons out of the stone, sacrificing little children to communicate and get the service from the demons. This is one thing mentioned. If you go back in history, planet, and it is very likely that we can put the date at 80,000 BC, connected to the destruction of the Lemurian continent. This is a soft source, I would say. I wouldn't call it hardcore science, but many, many things hint to this. And people who have memory of incarnations in that time report that in the moment when Lemuria went down, there was a swarm of meteorites coming in, hundreds of them, hitting the earth, containing this black goo. And they also say that connected with these meteorites, there was an invasion of a species that said actually that they are in trouble and that they need asylum, and ask the people of that time to give them that asylum. And after some time they realized that this was fraud, that they begged for help, and the moment they were let in, they started to manipulate the subconsciousness and send mankind to an ugly state, to the ugly state we're in now still.
Ecophagy is a term coined by Robert Freitas that means the literal consumption of an ecosystem. It derives from the Greek word and Latin word which refers to house or household, and the Greek phagion, to eat the household. Freitas used the term to describe a scenario involving molecular nanotechnology gone awry, in this situation called the gray goo scenario. Out of control self-replicating nanorobots consume entire systems, resulting in glomo-ecophagy. However, the word ecophagy is now applied more generally in reference to any event, nuclear war, spread of monoculture, massive species extinction, that might fundamentally alter the planet. Scholars suggest that these events might result in ecocide and that they would undermine the capacity of the Earth's biological population to repair itself. Others suggest that more mundane and less spectacular events, such as the unrelenting growth of the human population, steady transformation of the natural world by human beings, will eventually result in a planet that is considerably less vibrant and one that is, apart from humans, essentially lifeless. These people believe that the current human trajectory puts us on a path that will eventually lead to ecophagy. In the paper in which Freitas coined the term, he wrote, "Perhaps the earliest recognized and best known danger of molecular nanotechnology is the risk that self-replicating nanorobots capable of functioning autonomously in the natural environment could quickly convert that natural environment, like biomass, into replicas of themselves, nanomass, on a global basis, a scenario usually referred to as the gray goo problem, perhaps more properly termed global ecophagy." And the article goes on further about the archonic imitation in television. Jay Widener concludes, humans are imitated on television, but the imitation is altered and always obscene and profane because the archons not only do not understand the sacred, but they hate it. They are jealous of the natural world and human beings with the natural world, also of sexual relationships, loving couples making them angry, and they love violence and are sexually titillated by anger, war, and death. They create war to consume energy from the dying. This would explain why we see so much violence and sex on TV, and why pornography sites are rampant on the internet. Also, it goes on, archons, a parasite of a different order. Exploring the archons in his new book, Wetiko, the greatest epidemic sickness known to humanity, Paul Levy writes, quote, when people are infected by Wetiko virus, they are the host for the Wetiko parasites. The Wetiko germ is a psychic tapeworm, a parasite of the mind. Just like certain computer viruses of malware infect and program a computer to self-destruct, mind viruses like Wetiko can program the human biocomputer to think, believe, and behave in ways that result in our own self-destruction. Wetiko is a virulent psychic pathogen that insinuates thought forms into our mind, which, when unconsciously enacted, feed it and ultimately kills its host. That's us, folks. It doesn't want to kill us too quickly, however, for it to successfully implement its agenda of reproducing and propagating itself through the field, it must let the host live long enough to spread the virus. If the host dies too soon, the bug would be prematurely evicted and would suffer the inconvenience of having to find a new residence. That answers the question why they don't kill us off all at once. Mr. Levy continues, like a cancer of the mind that metastasizes in the Wetiko disease, a pathological part of the psyche co-opts and subsumes all of the healthy parts of the psyche into itself so as to serve its pathology. To quote Carl Jung, quote, an unknown something has taken possession of a smaller or greater portion of the psyche and asserts its hateful and harmful existence, undeterred by all our insight, reason, and energy, thereby proclaiming the power of the unconscious over the conscious mind, the sovereign power of the possession. The personality then organizes an outer display of coherence around this pathogenic core, which masks the inner dysfunction, making it hard to recognize. In a psychic coup d'etat, the Wetiko bug can usurp and displace the person who becomes its puppet and its marionette. So in short, where we think that man is controlling the machine, the archon and its black goo, the use of the black goo, is technology controlling and about to take over man, or is taking over man, to its ultimate demise, to our ultimate demise.
What we need to realize is that there are two qualities. One quality is coming from inner Earth, and one quality is coming from outer space. And they feel completely different. The Falkland black goo is called sentient oil because it has full empathy. If you're getting close to this oil, you're coming in a state of mind that is full of love and empathy. You find them in the Kaaba in Mecca, the same form of phallus-shaped structure that is described in Vedic script as Shiva's lingam, that is described in this Lovecraft script. A fragment of it is part of a central part of the Kaaba in Mecca, and every Muslim in the world is asked to go there once in his life and to kiss this stone. If you go back, you find them on Turkish and Roman, Greek and Turkish coins. You see them left and right of the tree of life in the paradise garden. So getting in contact with this black goo is what caused the deterioration of paradise. And it is not easy to understand the overall concept, because when you start to deal with black goo, the first thing you need to discover before anything makes sense is that there are two different qualities. We have liquid black goo. It is basically, it has been found on a southern Falkland island, Tula Island, And this is what the war with Argentina was about, accessing this black goo. We have this type of earth black goo in the Gulf of Mexico. This was what the Deepwater Horizon catastrophe was all about. Somebody was shooting a torpedo at the facility, destroying the attempt to get the black goo out of Mother Earth. And we had, I think, eight military submarines getting close to World War III, trying to capture some of that oil after Deepwater Horizon was destroyed. And no single civilian was allowed to go to the beaches to remove the oil. And it was just military personnel with special equipment and fully shielded against the influence of this substance. So this is one quality that comes from Mother Earth. And then you have a second quality that is found in connection with meteorite sites. If you look at the thing in Paraguay, you can exactly see by the form the stones are broken in the environment that was an impact of a meteorite. If you look into the Arabic mythology, they say the thing in the Kaaba in Mecca is a fragment of a meteorite. And this is now not against Muslims. If you look into the Peter's Dome in Rome, you have a big piece of this stone under the Peter's Dome. And if you analyze all the churches built in Middle Ages in Europe, every altar has a black altar stone. And what you feel when you enter a church is not the love of God. It is more like a cold fear. After my first contact with the stones, I was this close from killing the hotel director, because she complained that I took a shower, although I had to sleep outside. They didn't have any rooms left, so I slept in the car, was dead frozen in the morning, and took a shower in a room of a friend who had the last room that was available. And she just complained that I took a shower without asking for permission. I was really close to killing her. This is what these stones do with people as long as they're unconscious. Rather complex thing. You have to regard the entire planet as a electromagnetic resonator. And you have waves running around the planet, and with a wave kind of biting in its own tail, you get self-strengthening structures. And at the end, you get the sum of all platonic bodies standing as standing waves around the planet. And they have defined frequencies. Schumann frequency is the most known of them. And then the same thing happens in the core of the Earth. You have electromagnetic fields that travel through the stone, and they also build up a grid like this of platonic structures and other structures. And this goes around the planet. You can measure this by sticking 2 electrodes into the ground, and then you measure 50 hertz from the European electricity grid, and you measure 60 hertz from the American electricity grid. Same strength as the European one. This goes around the planet. And if you look at this structure, you can kind of ask yourself the question, are the sky and the earth in harmony with each other? Are they resonating on the same frequencies or not? And the thing is, if they resonate on the same frequency, then the 2 field structures can unite and print out scalar structures, scalar fields. This is what we call life force. Yeah. So life force on planet is dependent on the unification of 2 longitudinal waveforms that need to be in harmony. In former times, we had the trees with an antenna system to the air and an antenna system to the ground, keeping this resonance stable. Yeah? Then they started to cut down the rainforests, and then you come into this desert state. Desert state means no plants available, disconnection between the 2 systems, and then they start to play their individual frequency games. Do not reconnect at any point, because there's no antenna system reconnecting them. And then you don't have the development of life force anymore. And then you deeply go into the desert status. So the entire technology is based on Wilhelm Reich, are there to reconnect and to extract the wrong frequencies. And this is kind of giving us back the life force. And once we regain life force, we start to ascend, and then we collide with the world of the demons.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they hate, yeah, they
And
hate
then they can't act from the hidden. People who are kind of have high vibrations, high amount of scalar potential accumulated within their system, they will shine. This is what you see when you have a holy man in front of yourself.
Yeah.
And they will be able to see the Archons, because they're getting closer and closer to their realm.
Yes.
And this is something because their entire biology depends on being invisible.
Compassion, more kindness, more love, more care. And those are simple human things that we should have towards each other. Once we start to do those simple things towards each other, start to really truly care of what's going on, I think that this presence won't be able to mess with us anymore. And it'll be put back down, it will be thrown back down into the lower depths where it came from. I think that this isn't a wake-up call. It's sort of like when you're sick, your body's telling you there's something wrong. This is a wake-up call. It's trying to tell us, humanity, something is wrong right now. And if you don't take care of it now, it's going to overtake you. Your own creation is going to overtake you. And I believe that we feed this stuff with all of our negativity. If we start to be more kind and compassionate, then it'll be fine in the end. But I think it's pretty much just, that's about it. That's how we'll be fine in the end, is when we start to really care, especially for the children of the world, because children of the world are what is our hope. They're what's precious. We need to start getting more involved with children. We need to start spending more time with them. We need to start teaching them things of essence. I mean, getting our children to plant things, to stop watching so much television and being programmed themselves.
You say you are true evil. Shall I tell you what true evil is? It is to submit to you. It is when we surrender our freedom, our dignity, instead of defying you.
But how? How do we transform the collective human trance into wakefulness? How do we bring about the mass awareness of the people? And what steps can be taken to allow both humanity and the Earth to once again return to a natural state of abundance? Clearly, the first step is for people to understand and accept the truth regarding the current condition of mankind and the urgency of addressing the situation we are faced with. But even when people know the truth, as many do, most are simply waiting for social or financial Armageddon, waiting for December 21st, 2012, waiting for ascension or waiting for the rapture. And due to this lack of positive and decisive action, while people wait for redemption to be delivered to them via an outside source, the destructive machine of modern civilization continues to grind slowly forward towards its inevitable conclusion. Obviously, it is extremely important for mankind to truly grasp the depths of the problems we are facing and to the peril that our collective failure to deal with things has placed us in. And this peril includes not only the human race, but the entire Earth and all life upon it. Because if mankind allows the ship of state to continue sailing in its current direction, within possibly 3 to 5 generations, we are very likely to have allowed the creation of a world that will no longer support life as we know it.
So that everything from fluoride, everything is all about making the body acidic so that the entity can live in your body. When your body's alkaline, it cannot do that. It can't attach to your body because your defenses are all up and it cannot. Or when you're acidic, you have holes in your aura, you have different holes in your energetic body so that it can enter and literally stay in there. That was quite interesting because it's like they put it right in front of you and it's sitting right there and people think it's fantasy, but it's really not fantasy. It's real and it's really horrible because all the things that are happening to children, to people, that people are being sacrificed every single day. People are being taken from their homes. They're being sacrificed. Not their energy. They're being taken. Their energy is being taken. Not only that, they're being used as human guinea pigs. Not only that, they're being used as literally cattle. Humanity doesn't, it's really a victim to all these things going on. However, they're so asleep that it's hard for them to understand these things are going on. It's quite shocking for them.
This is what happens. You get old, you get bloated, you get tired. I was a beautiful girl when this whole thing started, and now, well, you see. But I've survived, so I feel an obligation to leave a record of events. Even if it doesn't save my life, it will help other people. Destructive, very destructive. And I really don't see there's much you can do about it. I wouldn't run to the authorities. I was fortunate in the beginning. The trusted authorities were harassing me. So I was, didn't run to the authorities and go, ooh, I'm being harassed. Because if you do that, they have immediate orders to label people who are gang stalking targets. That's why nothing ever gets done about it. So don't go running to them. And if family members don't want to look at what's happening to you and they say you're crazy, get the hell away from them. Because they're either in on it, or they don't want to deal with you, or they don't believe you because they can't handle it. If you're smart enough to even have figured it out this far, go for the gold. Go for the long haul. Because you staying alive, figuring out what they did, documenting it, will piss them off more than anything else. And I want you to piss them off. I want you to make a blog and need testimony. And everyone who's a naysayer is like, oh, she's just crazy, or they're just crazy, or... That's not your problem. Your problem is being targeted every day. That's your problem. And it's going to kill you. Get it? It's going to kill you.
Myron May, thank you for bringing the light to this, but you didn't have to die to get your fucking point across. Okay? You didn't. Aaron Alexis too. He didn't have to fucking die to get his point across. And it's fucking sad that these people are going to these measures just because no one wants to listen to them.
It's with a heavy heart that I am in front of you now to make this video. Kind of my last words. It's really unfortunate that I have to make this video. You see, I am a victim of covert harassment and electronic harassment and gang stalking. I'm what's called a targeted individual. I don't get to have a normal life because I'm a targeted individual. I don't get to have a wife and kids and a career where I get to rise and fall on my own merits. That's not what targeted individuals get. What we get is grief and pain and hardship and loneliness. And it's not fair. Those everyday ordinary innocent people, and somehow we've ended up on this ungodly evil list of people who have their lives literally destroyed on a day-to-day basis. I know that you're hurting mentally, financially, physically, emotionally. I know that you're hurting, and I admire your strength and courage to keep fighting the good fight. Hang in there, stay strong. There's a little bit of shame in me that I don't have the same strength and courage that you have. And please don't let my story die. Don't let this video die. Don't let any documentation die. Post it and repost it as much as you can. And if you do that, know that you'll be helping thousands of American citizens just like me. And quite frankly, who are just like you. You'll be helping them to have a chance at a normal life, the life that you have. One where you get to rise and fall on your own efforts and your own merits. And after all the loss associated with this, after all the loss, think about that. Think about all the loss and then ask yourself, is it worth accepting those challenges? And lastly, my message to God. This one will not be in the form of a prayer, although it is pretty much a prayer that's been on my heart for the better part of a week. Father, forgive me for what I'm about to do. Forgive me for all of my sins, past sins, present sins, any future sins.
Well, chaos was king overnight on the campus of Florida State University. Another school shooting. Students scrambled for cover as a gunman wounded 3 people, one of them critically. After some confusion, campus police confronted the man with the gun. At one point, the man opened fire on the FSU PD. They returned fire, killing the suspect on the spot.
Shots fired. What's your 20?
Shots fired. Suspect down.
What you just saw is newly released video from the night of the FSU library shooting. Good afternoon, I'm Eden Schultz.
And I'm Julie Montanaro. Among the videos released this afternoon, surveillance video that shows Myron May walking into Stroger Library just minutes before shooting and wounding 3 people.
Was firing outside of Stroger, came in, fired a couple shots in the lobby.
Headquarters, shots fired. Headquarters, shots fired.
Eyewitness News reporter Chris Groh is in the studio with more. Chris.
Eden, Julie, 911 tapes, dash cam video, and surveillance cam video were all released today, never before seen, painting a clearer picture of what happened in the early morning hours of November 20th. But first, we do want to warn you, some of the video you're about to see may be disturbing. Surveillance video shows gunman Myron May walking into Stroger Library. He then walks out after he can't pass the building's turnstiles. Around 20 minutes later, you see May walk back in after shooting and wounding Ronnie Ahmed and grazing Elijah Velez outside. May then sets his sights on Nathan Scott, firing once behind this desk, wounding Scott. But then he either reloads his gun or jams. Nathan Scott and his co-worker then escape. When May walks away, Scott and his coworker try to get away, but watch as 2 different people walk by May before he finally heads outside.
He came into the lobby of the library. My coworker and I were under the desk, and he fired a shot and went back out the door.
Now what you're looking at is dash cam video from FSU police showing when officers arrived on the scene. May would be confronted by officers from both FSU and TPD. Tallahassee Police's final report says May made a motion as if he was going to swing around, and that's when officers fired.
He said something, but he was talking like really quiet, and I'm screaming at him, It's like, drop the gun, drop the gun. Then I hear him say, like, I'm going to make you kill me. You just have to kill me. And so at that point, I was like, all right.
And so that's why we are here. We are trying to elucidate, enlighten the rest of the population, and hopefully they care. Hopefully they'll, research a little bit more and say, that could happen to my child. That could be me. And they'll do something, write their senator or whatever the motive would be.
Yeah. And if we all understand the game, we can just say, hey, stupid game, let's let go of it. And we can stop playing these thing that basically is nothing else than being afraid of self-responsibility. And I think we are at the point in history where every single individual should master that, to regain self-responsibility, and then we will not need a government. It's not about changing the government. Because the entire concept of governments, having somebody to control, is demonic. It's not about replacing people. It will never work. We need to replace the game. We enter a world of abundance. And this can only work if also the psychology of the scarcity is leaving. If we let go of this and start to trust the other cycle of, I know that there's enough of everybody. This is why I let go everything I don't need in this moment and share it with other people. And they gain trust in the thought that there really is enough for everybody. And this is also self-strengthening. And at the moment we are kind of diving through the hole of the needle, leaving one system, entering the other one. It's a process that is going to take place during the next 3 to 5 years. And when we are through, Nothing is going to be the same on this planet. The ones who survive this are the ones who collect the spirit and swim in front of the wave.
I've survived a lot of things, you know. People look at me and they would never ever realize what I've been through, and I don't even want to explain what I've been through, but I can tell you this, that throughout everything that I survived, it's because I remembered love. And there was days where I didn't have anything and I was in the worst situation. I was just a little child, and I would wake up and I'd look at the sun every morning and I just have so much heart love and be so happy and smile, and a person would be like, why are you smiling? And you're not allowed to smile. Why do you smile? And I would explain to them, because I feel love, and that is very, very important to me. All this time I think I have survived because of the fact that my heart is open, and I really do care about people, and I really, really, really see that others, the really sad thing, people aren't working from their heart. They're working from their ego or from other things, and it messes them up. And if everybody would just start opening their hearts and being kind and compassionate and caring, it's not no religion to do those things. It's something normal that we have forgot to do. If we do those more often, the world would be a much better place for us and our children. So it was also trying to break me in that way. It was trying to give me these emotions so that I would let go, because I was terrified. That instant, I decided that I should stop giving in to what it was doing to me on a spiritual level, and I decided to pull in inner peace inside of myself, which I've been able to do since a child, sort of peace and calm, because I understand in the end that I have a connection direct to Source, which I guess people would call God, which isn't even the right word for it at all, because it isn't a being sitting up in heaven, but divine source of all. So I got this inner calm, and then suddenly it let go of me, and I was fine after that.
And what do you think about those people that don't buy your story? Does that not bother you?
Not in the least. Truth never goes away, and it's like a seed planted. It is going to blossom and come to fruition, because it's everywhere around us. It's in so many aspects of society, and once people's eyes are open to truth, even if they don't want to see it, they're going to start seeing it around them. So no, that doesn't worry me in the least. It's not important that they know my truth. It's important that they know their own, and everybody's on their own learning path. They're going to get the truth. They're going to.
That was wrong. So today, on behalf of another generation of American leaders and another generation of American citizens, the United States of America offers a sincere apology to those of our citizens who were subjected to these experiments, to their families, and to their communities. When the government does wrong, we have a moral responsibility to admit it. The duty we owe to one another to tell the truth and to protect our fellow citizens from excesses like these is one we can never walk away from. Our government failed in that duty, and it offers an apology to the survivors and their families, and to all the American people who must be able to rely upon the United States to keep its word, to tell the truth, and to do the right thing. Make no mistake, as the committee report says, there are circumstances where compensation is appropriate as a matter of ethics and principle. I am committed to seeing to it that the United States of America lives up to its responsibility. Our greatness is measured not only in how we so frequently do right, but also how we act when we know we've done the wrong thing, how we confront our mistakes, make our apologies, and take action. That's why this morning I signed an executive order instructing every arm and agency of our government that conducts, supports, or regulates research involving human beings to review immediately their procedures in light of the recommendations of this report and the best knowledge and standards available today, and to report back to me by Christmas.
Sorry.
compassion, more kindness, more love, more care. And those are simple human things that we should have towards each other. And once we start to do those simple things towards each other, start to really truly care of what's going on, I think that this presence won't be able to mess with us anymore. And it'll be put back down, it will be thrown back down into the lower depths where it came from. I think that this isn't a wake-up call. It's sort of like when you're sick, your body's telling you there's something wrong. This is a wake-up call. It's trying to tell us, humanity, something is wrong right now. And if you don't take care of it now, it's going to overtake you. Your own creation is going to overtake you. And I believe that we feed this stuff with all of our negativity. If we start to be more kind and compassionate, then it'll be fine in the end. But I think it's pretty much just, that's about it. That's how we'll be fine in the end, is when we start to really care, especially for the children of the world, because children of the world are what is our hope. They're what's precious. We need to start getting more involved with children. We need to start spending more time with them. We need to start teaching them things of essence. I mean, getting our children to plant things, to stop watching so much television and being programmed themselves.